This is not a regular video, this is a special one, and it's directed to everybody. That's because 99% of the people are either not aware or they're not willing to accept that they've already entered a zombie state when it comes to the phone pandemic. I mean, just look around you, look at yourselves, in the morning, in the evenings, all day long, with friends, with family, whether you're outside, in the trains, in the planes, everywhere. People are mostly engrossed with their phones, intermittently or most of the time. And the fact that when you're just looking at the phone, from a distance, it kind of resembles a zombie state. Is in a way it is good because it makes you, it triggers you and makes you realize that there is something wrong there. But and I've never liked the zombie movies or the zombie word itself. But the reality is, this zombie thing is not just a physical thing; it's affecting the mind as well. It is a mental thing, and that is why, if you look around yourself, the anxiety of people is going through the roof. In extreme cases, there are a number of mental health issues which are rapidly spreading, and you can see the breakup of the families, the breakup of the community, of the social elements around you, and the quality of life is being impacted. But most of you would be saying, hang on, I do not fall into that category because I use my phone for work. I use it to get things done. I use it to call friends and family. I use it for learning stuff. And all of that can be true. And that's exactly where the catch lies. That is exactly the entry point into the zombie state, because you start with the good stuff. You start with things that you think are right, but eventually, the lines begin to blur. And this is where, if we can, briefly look at the difference between information, knowledge, and wisdom. Right now, we've been presented with a lot of information out there, and so that can just be termed as data. That is just information. Now, how do you make that useful? Is obviously then that is knowledge. But the most important thing is wisdom. Is do you really need to learn a certain thing? Do you really need to be aware in such detail about certain things? And so when it comes to wisdom, it is more about the context of a person, the context of a person's situation, with respect to what he needs to do with himself, where he is with the family, where he is, with the society. And that is what will, really help you dictate what you need to be doing. But if you're engrossed with the phone, most of the time, you're beginning to lose that thinking space. You're beginning to lose that time where you can actually just think about what you're doing, how productive your day really is, and what you've done during this week, and what you plan to be doing next week, next month, because you're so engrossed with the content, which is obviously it is beginning to blur the lines. And that's where the algorithms are getting smarter and smarter, because they will show you stuff that you want to see, and they will show you stuff which is really, really useful. And that is where it becomes tough to actually just stop the phone on the side and have a real thing. And interestingly, now with the advent of AI, AI is again one of those glamorous, shiny things, which are like, this is good, cool stuff we need to learn, and I'm using the AI. And again, partially, a lot of that is correct, but also we did recently a video on the dumb side of AI. And the more I use AI, and I use AI a lot of times, but I am increasingly convinced that while there is good stuff out there, this is almost engineered to, if we can use AI for like automated idiots. So we want to create a whole world population of automated idiots. And trust me, it's not about, a lot of people might confuse this with, there's more awareness out there, and there's more, people are getting more educated. And if you actually look around yourself, that is nonsense, because that is not translating into people's behaviors. I mean, just go ahead and look at some of the stuff that is available on X or on a lot of platforms where, you increasingly, all you're seeing is, people, for example, just fighting with each other and abusing each other. and the especially on the short side, it's not even just X. It's on all the social media platforms. This shorts thing is another one where it gives people the ability to just put short videos out there, short form content, and again, then the way the algorithm continuously adjust this to the way that the viewer is watching is it'll keep you hooked on. It'll keep you showing stuff that you're interested in. And then there's a very smart amount of peppering, that goes on behind the scenes where, you'll be watching certain kinds of videos that will pepper it'll pepper your feed with something else, which is completely unrelated. A lot of times you will come across stuff, which may be disgusting. But once you, are fed that stuff over and over again, the disgusting thing isn't so disgusting anymore. The thing which you thought was really, vulgar and bad, it just becomes a slightly normal thing. It doesn't seem so bad anymore. And so essentially what is happening is you're going into a kind of a zombie state, where, you're basically you go in with good stuff, you go in with good intentions, yeah, you're going to do your work, but then it just, grabs your attention and, just takes you on a journey in which there is the good, there is the bad, and the ugly. And typically, the amount of good begins to reduce, and the amount of bad and ugly begins to increase. And that is why you see a lot of anxiety, you see a lot of mental health issues, you see a lot of stuff breaking down. Now, that's more than enough for the bad stuff. Now, what is the good news? How can we fix this? And the good news is that it can be fixed. So for that, it's a 2 to 3 step process. Okay. Now, the first step is recognizing and accepting that it is what it is. If we keep on looking at our phones, from morning to evening, that is not taking us to a good place. So the first thing is sort of just accepting the fact that this is wrong. Overall, if you're spending so much time intermittently, this is a wrong thing. Not to mention the fact that, in just a few years ago, it would be genuinely disrespectful if you were sitting with somebody and somebody was looking at his phone. And even now, some people will find it offensive, but it is increasingly becoming like a regular thing. Maybe he's got something important to look at. Maybe he's, looking up something that I'm talking about. The second thing is changing the conversation. Just so, for example, if you were going to see friends or if you're sitting with a family, you can say to people in a light, humored way, I've placed my zombie device on the side. And so you will immediately begin to notice that the quality of your life, the quality of social interactions will begin to enhance and, come back to a very good quality, the more you stay away from the phone. And so this is something that should be encouraged, and we need to change the conversation, and we need to, get more and more comfortable with telling people to, put their phones away and call it a zombie device or call it a loser device. And, it may sound very strong to some people, but this is true, because when somebody, even if it's myself or anybody else, when we're sitting on the phone intermittently, we tend to go into a loser mode because we're losing touch with the reality of the world that we're in. We're losing touch with the social connections, the quality of social connections that we have around us. And we're losing a number of different things. So it's important to tell yourself that, you're in a loser mode when you just pick up the phone and start looking at it. Now, coming back to, I want to get my work done and I want to get my things done, you need to be able to gradually increase the discipline on that and be very specific and be very intentional with it. So, for example, you can say every day from 10 to 11 in the morning, I'll sit down and get my work done. And that way, so you'll force yourself to be productive from 10 to 11, because otherwise, typically what happens is you open your phone for work, at 10, and then after a few minutes, you've drifted away into something completely which you think is really, really useful, some really great news and some really great podcast, and you end up, you wasted an hour, a couple of hours, and you haven't done the thing that you started up doing. I hope you found this video useful. Until next time, have a good day. Bye now.